Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we are having another Meet the Player chat, and I'm really stoked because I'm finally talking to Morsalty, who a lot of you will, I'm sure, have seen runs of or comments on your own videos or whatever the case is. So, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, nice. So, let's just jump straight into the questions, and the first one I always bust out is like, how did you get into these games? What was your first exposure? Kind of take us on a bit of a journey how things got started for you.
Well, I was into like retro game collecting when I was a kid. Uh, so I kind of knew the genre through osmosis, just getting cheap games for the NES, stuff like that. They were always a thing. Didn't really start playing them like seriously until about 3 years ago. Played a game called Zero Ranger, indie game on shmup, and that indie game on Steam, and that really kind of just got me into the genre.
Yeah, nice. That's one I would love for that to hit Switch someday. Like that's the only thing I play on right now. But I know I've seen that game numerous times and it always looks so incredible, and it's just got such a wicked look and feel to it. And I have a soft spot for indie games in general, like even outside of the shmup genre. So that's always one that I think about every once in a while. Um, but yeah, that's really cool. Like, so what were some of your thoughts like when you saw this game or you played it for the first time? Like, I know for myself when I played my first shmup, like Solar Striker back in the mid '90s, I had no idea what to do, or like I knew it was like, okay, I'm controlling a ship, um, and I'm shooting enemies, but like there was really no concept of the genre. And then even when I got into shmups in 2018, like, and was actively searching for games and just more aware that okay, this is actually a whole collection of these types. Uh, there were still things I just didn't understand or just had no clue about, like 1CCs, for instance. I didn't know about that until much later. So like, what were some of your like first experiences when you did start playing these games?
It I was just kind of bored with the AAA scene at the moment. Was just going through like a big indie game fix,
Mm-hmm.
and finding the that game in particular, just the challenge of it, how it just kept going you to keep on trying over and over again, get better at it, more so uh, mastering the game rather than like getting a number up or something.
Yeah, for sure. I totally hear you on that. Like I feel like I certainly play a variety of games, but what I've noticed with myself and my game time and the types of titles I play, I'm certainly playing a lot less of the variety these days. It's just like more and more focus on shmups and arcade style games, and I think there's just something about the challenge and what these games kind of demand of you. Like I love
Yeah.
needing to learn things and really apply myself and just chip away until you finally crack that 1CC or whatever the case is. So there's something really rewarding about that. And I think a lot of people who do actively play these for clearing them um, have like a similar drive or passion for like those specific aspects of these games. Um, so I suppose like what, and maybe we already talked about this with how you just answered like the other questions, but like what was it about these games that got you hooked? Like was there a specific mechanic, or um, was it just like you said, like just the like you were tired of AAA stuff, and this was like kind of the next thing that was just doing it for you?
They uh they just felt more engaging to me.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause after I tried that one, I went online, found like communities and resources like recommend me other games, and just kind of exploded from there, just trying game after game, seeing what appealed to me. And it's just they demand your attention. You can't just really shut your brain off and play them. You kind of do have to be in the moment. I just kind of scratch an itch that no other game really or genre kind of does the same way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I was just thinking about this yesterday. How like tons of games across all sorts of genres will give you like endless breathing room where you don't have to really care about what you're doing. But one thing I love about shmups is they are so dense, and even if it's a 15-minute game or a 30-minute game or whatever the case is, like you have to be applied that entire time. Like there is no break really. You always have to be present, and I think that's just super cool. And it's just a way that like even though these games are like simple in theory, like in terms of like there isn't really
Hmm.
much to them. Like you shoot, you dodge. There are the fundamentals, of course, but there's just so much that you actually do need to kind of master within yourself and within the game. And I don't really ever find that kind of experience in other genres, or at least to the degree that shmups kind of confront you with. So I think that's really really cool. Um, Now, do you have a preferred controller type, or like maybe you shifted from one thing to the other? What does
Cool.
that look like for you these days?
So originally I was pretty much only on D-pad, uh, uh, especially when I got a PS4 and started exploring the PlayStation library.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the D-pad was getting a little rough. Like it just if you're playing a shmup for a couple hours at a time, I just felt my thumb was getting a little tired.
Yeah,
So I probably like a year and a half ago, I decided to switch to arcade stick, and it's pretty much all I use now.
yeah, amazing. And are there
It's
ever
great.
specific situations where like you feel one game is better with D-pad, even though like you are almost exclusively, or maybe you're like completely on stick now and you never touch anything else? But I know for myself, like when it comes to old style like retro shmups, like a lot of the arcade archives releases, I love using D-pad. Whereas other times it's just like it has to be stick. It just feels so much better that way. Are there any exceptions for you, or is it just purely stick these days?
Not really. Mostly on the stick. Occasionally, if I like pop in my Saturn, I'll uh use the Saturn D-pad because that's it's just a good feeling D-pad.
Yeah,
But
awesome.
I have no preference really. Just stick's more comfy for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So what about let's talk about like specific titles. Like what are some of your favorites or ones that just really pulled you in unlike any others?
Uh, Probably number one would be Battle Garegga.
I had a feeling you'd say that. Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably the one I've spent the most time on.
Yeah.
Uh, that game is a wall at first for you. Just like you need to know lots of little hidden mechanics and just really live in that game for a while just to wrap your head around it. Once you do, it's very rewarding.
Yeah. Well, so for those who aren't familiar or who haven't really ever played it themselves, like, do you want to share a bit about how that game works? Just some of the ins and outs. You don't have to go into super detail or anything like that, but I think it'd be awesome just to hear you
Oh yeah.
talk about it a little bit.
So it's just a game very much involved around scoring and rank management. Both of those things go hand in hand.
Hmm.
Um, so it just every time you push against the game, try to get more score, improve even for survival. It'll get harder with the rank system, and so you're constantly having to score to obtain more lives, and then throw those lives away to reduce the rank. And the more you keep trying to push that score, the more on edge the game gets. It's just extremely engaging.
Wow. And from what I like, I've never played it myself, but from what I have heard, there are like oodles of either modes or options or something like that, where it's just like you'll more or less never run out of experiences to hit up when you're playing that game. Is that accurate, or how are things set up in that?
Yeah, so you have eight different ships, and each ship has different subtypes. They just like change like mildly smaller hitbox,
Oh,
slightly
okay, yeah.
faster speed, but each ship has its own kind of play style,
Mm-hmm.
where your bomb is completely different. The way your options work are different. Your at least for some of the ships,
Yeah.
and how you actually have to approach the game with because some ships have much more increased rank versus others, or you have to micro dodge or macro dodge more. Try to do different scoring strats with each of them. It's just it's quite a lot.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I could just imagine it taking a long time to just kind of settle into a single ship, let alone mastering all of them or whatever. Like, that's, yeah, it sounds like a game that you could just put tons and tons and tons of time into.
Oh yeah, it's something you can always improve at.
Yeah, for sure. And so, do you want to share a bit about like what your journey with that game specifically, like how the runs went, like what you've all accomplished in that game, things that were just like an insane wall that you finally cracked after weeks or whatever the case was. Like, just paint a bit of a picture for us if you don't mind.
Yeah, that one was definitely a growing moment for me as a player. Uh, I had been bought it, played it for like a year, just credit feeding, playing the premium mode,
Yeah.
just kind of living in the game for a while, looking up information here or there, reading a wiki. Uh, Eventually, I just kind of just decided I'm gonna just go for it, just cast that self doubt aside and just keep doing run after run.
Hmm.
And I believe it was a little over a month of actually like trying to play it. I eventually was able to get the clear,
Wow, that's
but
amazing.
the wall was definitely the end of that game. Just the uh, Blackheart 2 and Glow Squid. Uh, Both of those bosses make me incredibly nervous
Yeah.
in a real run. So just actually after many attempts of dying on the last boss, second to last boss, actually overcoming that was felt really good.
Yeah, I believe it. That's
Uh,
that's huge. And I know like just from like the streams of yours that I've popped into, like I remember even just seeing you do uh stuff in other games like Esperade, and it's just wild seeing like one thing that always stands out is just how masterful your micro dodging is and your awareness for like position and stuff like that. And so it's really neat to see um just like what people's strengths and weaknesses are. So my next question is like, what do you feel you could improve upon? Like, what's your weakest link in terms of skills?
Definitely nerves.
Hmm.
Always love to choke at the very end.
Yeah,
Uh, and I still don't feel like honestly that I'm that good of a player. Always something to improve on.
yeah. No, I feel that too. Like, no matter how many clears I get or like whatever I achieve, it's just like I always just remind myself like, yeah, I'm still just at the beginning of the journey because there's just
Yep.
so much more to do, so much more to improve upon. So yeah, I definitely understand that. Um, so I think that's actually a great way to get into the next question that I have is like, what is your greatest accomplishment to date, or something you're at least proud of? And it doesn't necessarily
Ooh.
have to be a clear, but just something that you kind of either you learned it or you discovered it about yourself or you just figured something out or you overcame a really challenging stage that you just put serious time into, or it could be a clear, like whatever it is for you. Like, what was one or two of your biggest things?
One my first 1cc of a Zero Ranger
Mm-hmm.
definitely sparked something in me. Because I that was like the first game I ever one credit cleared. And that game definitely felt almost like an impossible task until it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say that. Dangan Feveron felt very good to clear. It wasn't something that I spent a whole lot of time on or was like having massive struggles with, but it was just such a fun game to play, and
Yeah.
just kind of organically just keep trying, getting better, and eventually just doing it. That's one that always just stands out in my mind,
Yeah, nice. Oh, that's awesome. Um
just because it was so much fun, and
yeah, for
that's what I
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
that's
I
what we mainly play for is just to have fun.
yeah, that's great to hear. And I think it's really important to always remember that, like, at the end of the day, these are video games. So it's like if you're not having fun, it's like, why are you playing games in this genre? It's like, yeah, people can have reasons or whatever, but I feel like it's just, you got to be having, it's got to like make sense to you, and it's got to be fun, or otherwise it's just kind of like a journey of pain and misery at
Yeah,
times and all that kind of stuff. So, um,
a little pain is to be expected, but yeah,
yeah, for sure.
definitely want to have fun.
Yeah. Um, do you have a favorite mechanic that just kind of shines brighter than anything else you've ever seen across like all the games you've played?
Ooh, mechanic.
Or even a couple, like if it's like a combination that you really enjoy.
I really like that in between, but of traditional shmup and bullet hell.
Mm-hmm.
Something like Choren Shah or Don Pachi, Dangan with just those very fast but sparse patterns.
Yeah.
Uh, I really like the feel of those games.
Mm-hmm.
The Dad Maku, if you might.
Yeah, for sure. And
Uh,
yeah, oh, yeah, please continue.
not really having like a preference for like either like hypers or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just like fast, sparse bullets, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's fair. How do you feel about like focus shots and things like that?
I don't really have a preference either way as far as that goes.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I know
Seems
like,
like faster feeling ships.
yeah, I've certainly noticed that like you're always going for like the fastest possible option available, which is great. Like I'm
Yeah,
like that in some games, but not all the time.
yeah, some games you definitely want to be moving slow, but if I have the opportunity to macro dodge and just move around the screen as fast as possible, yeah, I like them fast ships.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have any like specific goals for the near future, or even games you're chipping away at right now that you feel like, okay, this is going to be a little while before I clear it, or what's on the horizon for you?
Well, my backlog is ever growing. There's just way too many good shmups out there,
Yeah.
and way too many good ones that really demand your attention. But right now, I'm just kind of working on Mushihime-sama 1.5 Original Max.
Hmm.
Hopefully, I'll have the clear out before this episode goes live. But that's a fun one.
Yeah,
Very
nice.
very fast game.
Yeah.
Uh, Already died to the last boss twice, so any run now there.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have that in no time then.
Yeah,
It's just, yeah, it's just one of those things, like you just gotta keep doing it, and sometimes it can feel discouraging when you've made it to the final boss, and like maybe you just didn't use that one bomb that you could have, or whatever the situation is,
yep,
but like,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, like it's any day now or any run. But you know, that is a wicked game. I love that version 1.5. It's just fantastic. Um, so just before we started recording, like you had mentioned your interest in like variety, and so I would love to just explore that for a little bit, like because from what I can tell on your channel, or maybe it's just like what I'm seeing anyway, it's like I see a lot of horizontal shooters. You seem to bang those out like crazy, and I don't feel I often see like vertical shooters so much, but I know that you do balance, and you like you said earlier, like you have the variety that is like important to you. So are there things about horizontals versus verticals that you like more, or things that you kind of like struggle with in one type or over the other? Like what's that kind of situation for you?
I'd honestly say I have no preference for either.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the horizontal is definitely more on the traditional side. Like there's I've played a few horizontal bullet hells, but there's honestly not many of them.
Yeah. And
Uh,
okay, yeah, go ahead.
big fan of the Darius series. That was one of like the first games shmup series I kind of just went and sunk my teeth into.
Hmm.
So I definitely built up some skills around the traditional horizontal shmup, avoiding the ceiling and floor, such stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I
Yeah, so those kind of just feel second nature to me.
yeah, for sure. I remember I think you did like a super high Dora. Was it a no miss?
Oh, I don't think I know Miss Super High Dora. That game is long. But I did get one CC like the best ending or whatever.
Yeah, that I remember playing that. Like this was in my earlier phases with the genre, so like for me a lot of things blew my mind, but like I still feel like it's valid to say like the creativity in that game was just like through the roof. There were just such awesome implementations, and every stage felt like a completely new creation. And I had a blast exploring that one. Even though like I don't recall how it works, but I beat the final boss, but I don't think it was like ever like a 1cc sort of situation, because I think you can just choose to go to whatever stages or something like that. It's been a long time, but um, yeah, that game was just really really cool. And so when I saw that
Yeah,
you
game
had
has
like
a
a yeah, when I saw you had like a run on your channel, I was just like, man, that's wild.
yeah, game has some flaws, but it's definitely was a passion project. A lot
Yeah,
of like unique sprites and all the music is it's just a pretty game.
yeah, for sure. And like in that one, did you have like any struggles, or was that kind of just like you were experienced enough you could kind of just bang it out without too many weeks going by?
Yeah, I think I just kind of credit fed through it once, and then it was one of the first shmups I actually played uh, when I got my PS4.
Yeah, interesting.
Uh, yeah, I just kind of banged it out and just game felt very fair.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say there's a couple sections, especially that last mid boss is probably the hardest thing in the game. But yeah, you get plenty of lives and it's not too mean.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to that one at some point, because I think when someone is in a state where they're just like beginner, um, like they're gonna play poorly or whatever the case is, and so after you've grown and you just really know these games that much more, I feel like I'd probably make a lot more sense of things jumping into it now. Whereas like even though like I think like, oh man, it was crazy, like maybe it's not so crazy with like where I'm sitting at these days compared to before. So it's always neat to just like kind of check my thoughts when you have like those ideas of like, oh man, that was like the craziest thing, and it's still going to be crazy, because that might not actually be accurate. So yeah, maybe actually that leads to like another question is like, with how you've grown, have you ever gone back to games that you like maybe just checked out but you didn't clear in the past, and you went back thinking like, oh, this is going to be like super hard, but you noticed very clearly that you had grown a ton because you just banged it out without much effort?
Oh yeah, Darius Gaiden.
Okay.
Uh, one of the first things I kind of tried on MAME and thought it was unapproachable. Not knowing about anything about auto fire or how those games worked, going back to it and just busting out all the routes was definitely a learning experience.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
confidence building.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, like when I hear about like confidence building, and just like when I think about my own experiences with all the things that I need to kind of just like get up to speed or be a master of within myself, like, um, what are some of the inner things that, like, you mentioned nerves earlier, but are there other things that you feel like you have really, and even like I get that you've also mentioned that like everything still needs improvement, but like, what are some of like kind of the highlight things that you know like are kind of like improving at a faster rate compared to other things? Like, does anything stand out for you? Like maybe you have an eye for this, or like routing or whatever the case is. Because I know for myself, like I feel like one of my strengths is kind of just like dissecting things and just finding a way to simplify complex situations or parts of a stage or whatever. But I'm curious what that's like for other people. If anything comes to mind for you that you kind of know you just, um, yeah, have a strong focus on.
Definitely feel like my routing is getting quicker.
Yeah,
Being able to build that mental map of the stage and where I'm supposed to be, where to avoid. That's all coming a lot quicker.
yeah, nice. And would you say that's kind of like based on just having um, played so many games, or is it more that you're noticing a lot of similarities in games, then that you can kind of just like kind of base it off
I,
of what
I'd,
you've done before?
I'd say it's a mix of both.
Yeah,
You just kind of get better at the pattern recognition and learn the flow of the genre, especially between uh, both traditional and bullet hell. Both demand you work around the game. They're trying. Their games about movement, so it's forcing you to move from one area to another and just kind of letting that sink into your brain. I don't really know how to put it. Is pattern recognition.
yeah,
You just gain better pattern recognition with what the games want you to do to succeed.
yeah, totally. And with all of the like conscious stuff that like you're kind of like required to um, do, I think there's also still, I'll use the word like intuition. I think there's like an intuition that kind of builds the more you play these games. So like even if you have never played a certain shmup before, you'll kind of just click with the flow of the game that much more quickly, because like you've
Yeah,
just, yeah, like it's just, yeah, how it goes more or less. And I think that's really cool too. Like one thing I always think about is just how, to a certain degree anyway, you can transfer the skills from certain shmups or like most shmups to other, like you can take bits and pieces and you can kind of just apply
definitely.
that to the next experience. And I think that's really cool, um, because it's just it's one of those genres where it always feel, or at least to me, like it always feels like this progression, like this snowball kind of movement where things just always pick up speed. There's always something more to learn. And it's just kind of like a never ending journey, more or less. Like, I think that's really, really cool. Whereas some games outside of shmups, like you'll play it, it'll feel like its own thing, and then you'll roll credits and you'll be done with it and blah, 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 whatever. But here it feels like every game you focus on, even if you don't clear it per se, like let's say you just check it out and you're not so into it and you don't want to clear it, I still feel like you're taking little tidbits and you're kind of like adding it to this overall um, uh, like puzzle, or just something where it's like you're just kind of like building more of this progress in within yourself. And I think that all kind of contributes to the general direction of like moving into this genre and just crushing games and whatnot. um and
Yeah, you're
yeah, it's just, yeah, it's cool
building muscle
stuff.
memory, hand-eye coordination.
Yeah,
Not all of it's conscious. Like if you play a game long enough, you're or the genre long enough, you'll improve.
yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the one of the final things I'm curious about is like, and this doesn't have to be anything long or whatever, but like what advice would you give to those just jumping into these games for the first time, or even just people who have like maybe even played these games for decades but they've never really applied themselves or gone for a clear, and they're kind of starting to think like, yeah, maybe I want to commit to this kind of stuff because I've known these games for so long and I've never actually gone all out with one. uh, what would be like the most important thing that you could say to those people?
I'd say just play what you think is fun. What really like engages you,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep at it.
Yeah,
And if something's not grabbing your attention, just try something else.
yeah, for sure.
Definitely just play lots of games. See what you like.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, and it's one of those things that's going to be super different for everybody. Uh, Now, even though
Yeah,
that,
so some types of shmups just don't click with certain people, and
yeah,
that's perfectly okay.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so I'm curious, like I'm usually careful about like I don't really recommend games. I always like when people I always encourage people to kind of just like explore and find what clicks for them. But if you were in a situation where you had to recommend like one or two games for someone just starting out and they really had no idea about anything and they weren't really sure what they liked, what kind of games come to mind for you in that situation?
Uh, a compile game, honestly, that's a
Hmm.
great first shmup to one CC, especially if you're completely new to the genre.
Yeah.
Just for some confidence building, because you play through one of those a few times, well, depending on the game, but
Yeah.
most of them play through a few times, and you'll be able to get the clear.
Nice.
Yeah,
Oh
just
man.
something to build confidence. But definitely don't be afraid to cut your teeth on something like an arcade game. If it looks appealing to you and you feel like it clicks just aesthetically or just like the music, just how it feels, the mechanics, just keep at it.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
have fun with
that's
it.
yeah, that's solid advice. Um, One thing I do want to ask, which I had thought about before, but I it slipped my mind. When you do clear a game, like do you always have one in mind that you know you're going to get at, or is it kind of just like you take a look? And have you ever noticed a trend where like okay, let's say you finished a horizontal, do you jump to like a vertical, or do you kind of like play something similar after? Have you ever noticed any sort of trends along those lines?
I usually have like a few games I'm kind of playing off and on.
Okay.
Uh, and I usually kind of just pull them out of rotation from that.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes start a game, learn most of it, and then just put it on the back burner for later. Like I did that with the last few games I cleared. I wasn't just going at those one after another. That was something I was putting an hour in here or there, and then just deciding to bust it out.
Yeah. And how many do you have on the go at like a single time typically?
Usually about two or three.
Yeah. And has there ever been a time where like one game was just so good that you didn't want to play anything else and you just devoted like serious time to that one thing until it was uh yeah, cleared?
When I was going for every ship in Battle Garegga, I definitely did that.
Wow.
Like a couple months there.
Yeah. And was that
Uh,
like the longest duration you've ever like played a game for, or has there been something that like you either played for a longer time or the clear took longer for like just a single ship because of like the difficulty or
oh,
whatever?
Longos was probably my first one, or Zero Ranger.
Hmm.
Then getting my first ones to see in Battle Garegga was probably the second longest. That was Battle Garegga was over 100 and something hours.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Uh, but it was one of my first like arcade shmups as well, which is probably not the best one to cut your teeth on,
Yeah.
but like I said, it engaged me. It was fun, so
Yeah.
it was a good time.
Yeah. No, I love it. Like I never view time invested as like a negative thing. Like if it's a lot of hours, I mean, it's just like whether it's like someone's first game or like even someone who's experienced but they're going at like a really difficult mode, and like even if it's like hundreds of hours, I think that is just representative of yeah, really learning something, really challenging yourself, really putting time into exploring and experimenting, and or just loving a game so much that you wanted to play it a lot, like even after and like that first clear or whatever. And on that note, like, are there games like I get like with Battle Garegga, like if you are going for all the different ships, then of course you're going to clear the game multiple times. But has there ever been like a
Mm.
game you just really enjoyed where it was just one ship and you just did multiple clears, or do you kind of always just move on after the fact?
Oh, I've done multiple clears with in Esperade and Ketsui.
Hmm.
Uh, but that's just for fun. I like Yusuke and Esperade is just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Having a bad day or something, sometimes just go through that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, oh man, like I think I've watched like every Esperade run that you've ever thrown up onto YouTube, and like for me that's one game like I'm not sure what it is. Like I've learned bits and pieces of how the game works here and there, and I remember like even you and I have talked about that game because there were certain questions I had, but like there's just something about it that just feels so different to me, and I don't feel like I understand it well enough to like really commit to it. But like when I see your runs, it's like, man, this guy knows the game like inside and out, and like yeah, the TLB and even like the final stage, the final boss, like some of that stuff is just like wild to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Feels a little different if you're used to the later cave library.
Mm-hmm.
Your hitbox is a little wonky, and little big, compared to what a lot of people are used to, but it has a unique feel.
Yeah. And do you want to like talk a little bit about that, because like I know you've put a lot of time into different runs and things like that. Like what was it about that game that kind of just pulled you in?
It just the flow of it. It's a fast stand Maku that's not terribly dense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very approachable bullet hell game, I would say. Like you can visually see what the patterns want you to do without being too overwhelming.
Yeah.
That was my first actual bullet hell game, I would say, after like Ghostblade HD or whatever. But that was like first actual like arcade bullet hell cave game I cleared. I felt like it was approachable.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, on the topic of bullet hell, like my first was Danmaku Unlimited 3, and what's funny is like my first, like other than playing Solar Striker in the 90s and having no idea like what I was supposed to like do to make it through that game, my first in 2018 was like Steriden Binary Stars, which is like the rogue like or roguelite, whatever. And like I got really into that, and then when I started looking for other games, it was like, oh, okay, here's DU3. Let's see what this game is like. And I feel like that game just like I could not have fathomed just the intensity like that is thrown your way, because like I was so not used to anything like that, and suddenly it's just like these dazzling lights, brilliant attack patterns, and just like craziness at like
It can be
every
overwhelming.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it was just absolutely mind-boggling to me. And that was like when my eyes were open to just like how like off the charts these games can be. But there was something so unique about that game, and I just loved it that it pulled me deeper and deeper. Um, so yeah, it's neat to hear that you've also dabbled with that one too, and it was really cool because like that's one of the few games that no matter how many months or years pass, I still love going back to it, to just like continue chipping away at like whatever clears are remaining. So last year I did yeah, the Spirit hard mode, without the
Yeah.
TLB, and without getting the extend. I like just that was kind of like a personal goal I wanted to like apply to like how I cleared it. And like yeah, that was just a really cool time jumping back into that game and just accomplishing that, and knowing that like the next step up, like the true mode, and then getting into like Gray's hard and Gray's true, like that's just going to be a whole other experience when I get around to sitting down with that game again. But yeah, it's just a really cool title.
Yeah, it seems underplayed in the community, especially those later like all the true modes and the uh, hardest difficulties in that game. Don't really see many people actually go for them.
Yeah, it's wild because I've noticed that too. And what's crazy to me is like just how ridiculously cheap that game is. And sometimes when it's on sale, it's only like $2.
Yeah,
It's like a must buy in term, like even if you just want to check it out and never play it again, like it's worth taking a look at.
it's one on my back burner.
Yeah.
Got it on a Steam sale couple credits in, but definitely haven't not put much time into it.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Like, have you at all followed like the development of that developer's new game, Wyver Ultra?
No, I've seen some stuff on it, but I haven't really paid much mind to that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I, I,
Sure, I'm sure it'll be very quality.
yeah, it's like from what I've seen, it's like a huge step up from DU3. The visuals are just like mind-bogglingly good, and the attacks look awesome, and I'm really excited about that. So, whenever that's available, that'll be really cool. But yeah, like I think for the most part, that's like everything I kind of wanted to, um, yeah, like ask, and I feel like we've more or less had a well-rounded chat. Is there anything else you feel like sharing specifically, or like anything you're passionate about that you would want to like give a little attention to? And if not, that's totally fine too. But yeah, I just want to make sure.
Uh, just have fun with the games.
Yeah,
It's something that's meant to be enjoyed.
yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, I suppose in that case, we will close this out. I really, really appreciate you setting aside time to do this. It's one of those things where, like, I only put out one episode of this series a month, and I never want to, like, reach out to people too early, but I've always wanted to, yeah, chat with you once I started this series because it's the more we can learn about all these awesome and supportive people in the community and people who are putting up runs or commenting or whatever, it's just better. I just love hearing all these details and things that people share. So yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah,
doing this. And
no
yeah,
worries, man.
yeah, thanks. And
Yeah.
everybody who's listening, thank you so much for yeah, popping by and giving this a watch or a listen or whatever. And yeah, thanks again, Morsalty, and we will see everybody next time.